My name is Michael Bowen. I am a senior solutions engineer here at Votiro, recently acquired by Menlo Security to enhance their product stack. Today, we are going to go over content disarm and reconstruction and discuss the how it works as well as um, why you need it in your organization. So the agenda today is obviously a high-level overview of CDR, why we need it, the evolution of it over time, the use cases where you can use the technology. We'll do a short demo of the technology, and then we'll talk about where it fits in what file channels, etc., and then a summary and questions if anybody has any. All right, so let's get started. So what is content disarm and reconstruction? As an analogy, content disarm and reconstruction is the ability to take unstructured data, files coming into your organization through many different channels, take them apart, analyze the content of them, and remove the malicious or potentially malicious objects. And it does that without relying on any sort of signature-based detections. To show you here kind of an animation of how this works. Content works by creating, CDR works by creating a brand new template of a file in its original file format. The known good elements of the original file are copied over into the new template, and any unknown objects that are embedded or hidden inside the original file are left behind. So this basically gives you a completely safe file identical to the original, but without the unknown or hidden objects inside of that file. To go a little bit deeper into this and the breakdown of how it works. So the original file comes into your environment through whatever channel it comes in through. Votiro specifically is an expert of over 200 different file types that people traditionally work with around the world, including the macros and all of the content inside of those. So we analyze the original file to determine its file structure. We break down the file into every object that makes up that file structure. So things like your style sheets, embedded containers, binary objects, images, macros, etc. If there is an unknown or potentially malicious object inside of that document, it is flagged. In this case, we have this binary object with a question mark. We don't know what this is. We just know it shouldn't be part of that file. The next thing we do is we then extract all of the content from that file and we move it over into a brand new template. Um, that sanitized file is then delivered on to the end user completely safe. And this entire process happens automatically and quickly without without the end user even knowing that it occurred. So, and to give a real world example of how this works. So I want to talk about the Follina vulnerability that happened a couple of years ago. So threat actors discovered that they could embed a specific object inside of an Office document. This object would allow downloading and remotely executing code on the user system by simply opening the file on the user system. That attack started on April 7th. It took over 2 weeks before that malicious code was even reported to the VirusTotal community. After another 4 weeks, only 40% of the AV engines out there were even detecting that signature in those files. And then it took another month after that before Microsoft put out a patch that prevented the attack. But in that time period of basically 2 months, that attack had doing damage. It had been infecting people's systems. It had been allowing remote execution of code. However, with customers using Votiro and CDR, that attack was actually prevented on day zero as the CDR process had removed that vulnerability or that malicious object from the file before users even received it. So you can see that the ability to extract unknown objects and recreate new files is very powerful in securing your environment. So CDR, it really is in today's age a necessary component in your security stack for the exact reason that the Follina exploit was able to infect so many systems. Uh, Malware is constantly evolving and changing. Even a small change to the code of an attack renders signature-based tools ineffective at containing new zero days and new variants of existing attacks. For instance, there is a constant resurgence of the Emotet malware. This malware has been around for over 10 years, but it keeps coming back with new variants. And every time it comes back, they're even more sophisticated. There's a change in the malware. The signature-based tools are playing catch up. All the time, your environments are open to attack. Another example of constantly evolving threats is, for instance, Agent Tesla. This attack has been around for over a decade. It keeps evading signature-based tools by obfuscating its code inside of other files or encoding the scripts that it runs with base 64 encoding so that the signatures are different for the AV signatures. It's able to bypass tools by hiding its encrypted code inside other files. For instance, one of the ways it gets past signature-based tools is it actually hides its code inside of images using steganography. And then those images or that code is extracted from those images once it's on the user system. And then, of course, there is the increased expansion of malware as a service, where malicious organizations are actually providing malware as a service that constantly gives out new variants of malware to millions of users, aspiring malware artists around the world. And it uses AI to constantly and quickly adapt and rewrite that code. So these constantly evolving threats, they make traditional security tools ineffective at preventing the modern security threats. Antivirus relies on signatures, which only appear after a threat has been active for weeks or even months. During that time period, the malware has already done the damage. Sandbox actually works pretty decently well, but the problem with it is it slows down the users as they wait for their files to be processed through the sandbox. This processing can take minutes and effectively irritating users and preventing them from doing their work. It's also not completely effective, as modern malware can delay execution until after it bypasses the sandbox, or even in some cases, these malwares can detect that they're inside of a sandbox and not execute until it's past that sandbox. Second. Phishing awareness is also a absolute need in an environment, but even with all the training that users get on not opening files that they shouldn't, there's still a very high open rate for unknown files. On top of that, malicious actors are getting very good at convincing users into opening files by using AI to create very convincing emails or documents that look completely legitimate. CDR protects against all of these threats proactively and automatically. So, to give a little understanding of CDR and how it has evolved over time. So CDR, for one, has become a standard technology deployed around the world. The technology itself has been around for well over a decade, and it has evolved over time. When CDR first came out, it really only did one thing, and it was to take any document, regardless of the file format, and turn it into a PDF. This prevents malware because you're squishing your file into a flat format with no active content. However, at the same time, you're removing the ability for your users to interact with the document in its native format. Very, very irritating for the users. The next stage of CDR was the ability to keep the file in its native format, but strip out all active content. This was a big advancement, as now users were able to get that data in the original format, but there was still an issue, as many times that active content in those files was needed to work with the files effectively. The last stage of CDR is where we are today and where Votiro is. With Votiro, we have the ability to remove all of the unknown objects from the files, as we discussed. We also have the ability to analyze the behaviors of the active content inside the files. Using AI and machine learning, we have trained our engine on tens of thousands of macros and scripts to determine what behaviors are considered malicious and what behaviors are benign. Using that data, we can analyze the active content inside of these files and determine which items are doing those malicious behaviors and remove them from the file while keeping the non-malicious content active and usable. So this new level of CDR allows your users to be productive, be as productive as possible but with all of the content they are interacting with, keeping them completely safe from malicious actors. All right, so I'm going to do a quick demo kind of to show you this. We've been talking about it in theory, but seeing it in action really will help understand what is happening. So what I did is I sent an email to myself. This email came through. When it first arrived in my inbox, Votiro had already scanned both of these documents. In this case, I received a resume that had been sent to my email. Inside of this resume, there was a malicious script, and that malicious script would launch a PowerShell and create havoc. I also sent myself a encrypted archive, as encrypted files and password protected files are a very easy way for malicious actors to get malicious code past your traditional tools. And then with a typical user or use case, you're in your environment, you're either doing one of two things with encrypted files. You block them completely or you allow them through and hope your EDR system picks up on whatever may be inside of it. So I'm going to go over to Votiro and show you these files. So this was the email that came through. As you can see, um, the email came through. It included several images and it included that Word document. Inside of that Word document, you can see again that we broke it down into all of its content, all of the embedded objects that make up this file. Inside of that, we happen to find that binary object, which is that zip. Inside of that zip was an LNK file, and inside of that LNK file was a suspicious script that launches PowerShell. Because our policies and our CDR engine says this should not be in this file, we actually removed that document, that LNK file, and removed it from the file and replaced it with a placeholder PDF that tells the user that it was removed. The end user did not know this happened. It all happened in real time. But as you can see, when I open up this document, it looks, again, identical to what it previously was. If I open this inside of Word, you can see that that zip file that was located, or that zip file that was embedded inside that document no longer contains that LNK file. As soon as my Word opens on the other window. All right, so we will pull this over here and you can see this. All right, so again, this is the original document. It looks identical to what it did when I sent it, but that malicious code that was hidden inside this zip has been blocked out and removed. We do this across all sorts of file objects. Since we are an expert of over 200 files, we know how to analyze and extract everything that is inside of these documents. So you can see that LNK was in fact blocked and removed from the file. Going back to the encrypted workflow, you can see that the very first thing we do is we actually will block that encrypted file because an encrypted file is not known to be safe. The contents of it cannot be scanned because it is encrypted. So we have a special workflow where we can actually block this file, and instead of delivering the actual document, refresh my page here. Instead of delivering the actual document, we will deliver a template in its place that asks the user to provide us with the password so we can actually scan the contents of this file. So they provide that password. And in the background, because of this special workflow, we have stopped the encrypted file. We've allowed Votiro to scan the contents of it and then allowed Votiro to place the contents right back into the mailbox where it originally was. safe of all content inside of that file. And again, you can see if I go back to my events, we will look at the refresh page here. We will look at the details of this email and we will see that that encrypted file is no longer blocked. It actually contained an exe or a document inside of it. Inside of that document was a zip. Inside of that zip was an exe. So we do this all in near real time, and we are able to extract and validate every single object inside of every single document that transacts through your environment. All right, going back. So we do this process across many different file channels. We can sanitize your files in almost any place where they are occurring. So obviously I showed you email. We can do this through web browser downloads, especially with Menlo having acquired us. We are already directly integrated with Menlo so that any browser downloads that you take down from the web or even upload to the web are actually processed through this same content, disarm, and reconstruction. We have APIs that allow you to integrate this product with third-party portals, with custom applications. Anywhere that a file might transact, we can scan it using APIs. We can also scan online storage like S3 buckets, Dropbox, or not Box, Dropbox, but Box, or File Cloud. Any places where you might be storing files, we are able to extract this content, examine it, and make it safe. And then we also do this across many collaboration tools such as Teams. So, primary takeaways from this. CDR is about automated, proactive prevention. It's not about detection. We proactively remove unknown and known threats from your unstructured data. Modern CDR actually increases productivity and security for your users at the same time. We can disarm your files anywhere you receive them, and it integrates very well into your existing tech stack to give you an advanced or an additional layer of protection. Thank you. Any questions from the audience?
We actually do have one. So do you have a guide or recommendations for anyone looking to integrate Votiro with a file gateway?
Yes, we do. We have a number of native connectors. So depending on the connection, we either have a direct integration, or we can obviously again integrate through APIs. Do you happen to have, or what specific file gateway product are you talking about? Oh, they're building one. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So the uh, the APIs that we have available, we can definitely get that to you after this call. But the APIs we have are very simple. There's basically five simple APIs. One is to send the file to us and tell us which policy you want to apply to it from a security perspective. There's a API to retrieve the sanitized file. There's an API to get a report on everything we've done to the file. And then there's also there's an API that checks the status of the sanitization, because we have two different ways we can send an asynchronous and a synchronous. But yes, we absolutely have documentation. It's a very simple API, can be easily integrated into any custom workflow or application.
Good. Yeah. Well, I'll follow up shortly after the webinar, and we can get something for you to send over to the customer.
Excellent.
So yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
if there's no more questions, I thank you all for attending, and we look forward to speaking with you.
So yeah. Appreciate everybody as well, and hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your weeks.